Welcome to the Injector's Business Blueprint, the show that helps you build a profitable and thriving med spa practice. Here, we don't just talk about overcoming med spa growth challenges, we equip you with firsthand accounts of what we did to help ourselves and our clients build profitable and sustainable practices they love. The next step in building a practice you love starts right now.
If you're a med spa owner who's ever felt alone on this journey, trust me, you're not alone. We started the Injector Business Blueprint because we know firsthand the ups, the downs, and the moments when you're questioning if it's all worth it. Today, Aaron and I are pulling back the curtain to share why we launched this podcast in the first place to hopefully make your journey a little less lonely. So, welcome back to the Injector Business Blueprint, where we are all about making the journey of med spa ownership just a little bit less lonely. So today I'm playing host. My name is Brandon Mullen, and of course, I have with me Aaron McNeil, who is an amazing business coach. And we are going to just kind of share a little bit about why we started this podcast in the first place. So, hey.
Welcome back.
Yeah. So, we're still trying to figure this out. So bear with us. We're getting our sea legs on this little podcast journey. The technical challenges are kind of interesting to me because normally we don't really have that many during our normal lives. And this is what we do to help streamline people that are business owners and entrepreneurs, right?
100%. And again, just diving in, why did we really start this podcast? What inspired you, me, us?
Mhm.
What really inspired us to start this?
First off, when I met you, whenever I saw your presentation at the Aesthetic Next event accelerator, I saw you on stage, I saw your slide deck, and I was like, I really like what this girl's saying because you were on stage, you commanded presence. What you said made sense, and you gave actionable feedback. You weren't gatekeeping, but you're real. You get to the point. There's no bullshitting. You are like, pew, pew, like straight shooter from the hip. And I was like, I like you. And I think that was the first notion that I just wanted to get to know you a little bit better.
And it's so funny because I don't know if you remember what I first said to you was like, I heard you speak. And
Uh-huh.
then I was like, I need to know him.
Yeah, you
I
did
don't
say
know if
that.
you remember, I said that to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we just got chatting a little bit. I learned a little bit about what you do and your background, like very, very little. And we exchanged stories. And, we've been fast friends ever since because I think we really resonate together
Mm-hmm.
on one, obviously, how lonely it can be when we think about everything that brought us from the very beginning of where we started to where we're at now. But also, how much we are invested and passionate about helping other people do the same thing, but maybe bypass the 15, 20 years of mistakes and sidesteps and all of the, jagged pathway to try to help folks walk a straight line as much as possible to success.
Absolutely. There's so many pitfalls and potholes that can be avoided. And to someone who has not been in the industry, or maybe they're in healthcare but in a different capacity, I think that it has a very different outlook than what real life is, right? So, Instagram shows all of the good fun things. And, I even experienced this myself with doing the most recent APMG Assembly virtual conference. I was like sitting here, it was like 2:30 in the morning. I woke up and had like these random ideas that I wanted to get down and like refine. And I'm like, I really wish that I could record myself now because this is the shit that you don't see, right? You don't see me not sleeping or being up early or the late nights and early mornings, like all of the hustle and grit that it takes to be a business owner. And it doesn't matter what business, right? Like, yes, this is aesthetics driven, but for instance, my virtual mastermind group, like that's a business itself too. And all of these things that we try to emulate are real, but the behind the scenes stuff that you don't see is just as important as the stuff that you do see on Instagram.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's interesting because you just mentioned you're like, I wish I could record this. And I don't
Mhm.
know if you get this request a lot, but I certainly do. I have my private Facebook group, I have my digital programs and my coaching. And there are people over the last, I would say, 18 months who are like, oh my gosh, you need to start a podcast. I would listen to you talk all day just about business. And so when we look at the conversations you and I have had and the countless conversations we have with clients or just even peers and colleagues, this is why I think, we decided, you know what? I think a podcast is the right platform. That way people could pick and choose what they listen to from us. And they also have that stream of insight, that stream of like where they can just download an episode that's going to help them grow a little or dig a little deeper. Yeah, we thought maybe a podcast since you are on social media a lot, I'm on social media a lot, and people are reaching out to us constantly, right? Saying like, can you just like bottle that up or like can you repeat that? Oh, can you send me the video for that? Did you record that? Right? So, with that said, leaning into the podcast, what do we really wanna bring to our audience?
One of the goals that I have for us, and I know that you share this too, is really to provide accessible feedback that is going to help somebody on this journey. It's going to get probably really detailed in some aspects and some are a little vague, but that's kind of the world that we live in, right? We have so much experience in very different roles. Me as a practice manager, you as an esthetician and a business consultant primarily for owners. I think that we have a really good blend of experience and strength to give people some hope that let's get through these times where you're feeling doubtful or your imposter syndrome is hanging at the forefront of your closet and creeping up on you, right? So I think we really just want to give people a shot of realism with some steps and guidance to help this journey into aesthetics, no matter where you're at, if you've been in business for 5 years or 5 minutes, just a little bit of hope and guidance to get on the right path and avoid some of the pitfalls that people commonly get stuck in.
Yeah, and it's so timely, and I was listening to an audiobook, and it's very inspiring for this conversation because there was, a little phrase that this person was talking about and what they were saying in regards to all of our information that is available to us today. Everything that you wanna learn, literally, there's a YouTube video, there's an Instagram channel, a TikTok channel, there's a channel for everything, right? Information
Yep.
exists everywhere. And I think what differentiates us and what we want to bring here is not just information, right? You can get information anywhere. It's what you do with that information. And what we want to help with is the direction because information and direction are very different. You can have all the information with no direction and wind up somewhere you didn't want to be. One of the main things for us was the actual right next steps for someone at a certain level of business, at a certain level of their own development in their own career. So it is very subjective to that person listening, but being able to use this platform to really provide direction and not just information. So information is good, right? You can get that everywhere. But for us, it's really like giving you those right next steps based on some of the things that we've learned, right? When we think about mistakes we've made, feeling imposter syndrome, that's huge, right? And having burnout. So, some of those things, right? If our listeners or the average med spa owner, practice manager, injector, esthetician, if you're afraid to kind of talk about it or admit a mistake, admit that you feel like an imposter, admit, that you don't know what your right next step is, that's why we're here, right? We want it to be a little less lonely and give you some guidance and be a reference point for people. So, with saying all of that, right, Brandon, I know you've had such a roller coaster of a career, right? A lot of people have. And when we think about giving space to anyone who wants to listen or needs the right next step direction, whatever it is. Was there ever a point that you felt like an imposter or you felt like, oh my gosh, I just don't know how I'm going to get up and do this one more goddamn day? Did you ever feel that way? Or like, you don't know where you're going, but you're just going to keep moving forward? Like, is that something that's happened once? Has that happened twice? Like,
It's
share
happening
story.
right now in this moment. I feel like an imposter because I don't know, why I feel eligible to even be sharing this information. No, I always joke and say that I'm the Anna Delvey of aesthetics because I started as a bedside nurse and kind of fell into aesthetics after personally diving into neurotoxin first. But when I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to help my friend develop her practice in Virginia, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm very candid with admitting, like, I had no idea what I was doing, but I have the skill set that makes me a good asset because I am a self starter. I am someone who is not afraid to admit when they are wrong or when they don't know. And it really has propelled me to seek out that information, like we were just talking about, but also more importantly, what to do with it. And sometimes I've done the wrong thing, and sometimes I've done the right thing. And over the past almost 4 years of being a practice manager, I've learned a ton. And not only that, but I have a unique purview because I am very close with a lot of solo injector practice owners. So I can share in their experience what they have done or what they wish they could have done and kind of learn through osmosis how to avoid their mistakes. And I try to leverage that knowledge with anything that is up and coming to see how can someone maybe implement this a little better, a little smarter, or how can they do it in a more streamlined way. So the long-winded answer is yes, I feel like an imposter all the time. And even when you were complimenting me when we first met, circling back to that moment, I'm sure that you probably felt the same way whenever I was like, "Oh my god, your talk was amazing." Like, "No, it's not. It was crap. Like, I could have done better." Do you feel that way too sometimes?
Yeah, it's so interesting. That talk specifically, I remember saying to Natalie, who's on my team, when I got off stage, I said that was a 6 out of 10. And she goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, I know I could have done this better. I could have executed. I could have whatever, right?" And it's so interesting because as long as we've been in the industry, and again, like throughout that journey, there are different variations of career point we were in and knowledge that we had. I still get imposter syndrome all the time. I
Mhm.
think it's a little less than before, but every time I'm trying something new, including being on this platform, it's like same, right? It goes through my head, same as what you said earlier, is like, who do I think I am? Like,
Right.
why would people want to listen to me? I honestly sometimes have to go back and read my resume and remind myself like, "Oh, you did all of those things, so you have some experience, you have some knowledge to, help someone who was in those positions before." Like I work with some amazing clinics. They're like multi-million dollar clinics. And now openly and candidly, my business is not multi-million dollars.
Same.
And I'm like, how do I feel like I'm the right person to guide this person? Now, I'm going off of my business today and forgetting sometimes that, oh, yeah, Aaron, you did run multi-million dollar operations before. So, yes, you are qualified. But it's
Right.
so interesting, when you think about the imposter syndrome, I don't think it actually goes away. We learn how to quiet it or fact check our, imposter syndrome. You mentioned as well that you kept, seeking out advice and you would do trial and error. And when I think about what makes it lonely is when we go more inward instead of outward. So I thought it was really interesting that you mentioned you seek out advice or you seek out mentorship and then you just kind of started going after things knowing you'd make a mistake and that was okay. Hey, it's Erin here. We're just cutting in real quick to remind you if you're finding value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe at injectorbusinessblueprint.com. Never miss an episode and get access to exclusive content and tools that we share only with our subscribers. All right, thanks for sticking with us. Now, let's dive back into the episode and keep building the practice you love. So, I kind of have two questions for you.
Yeah.
what makes you get back up after you fall, right? Like, if you've made a mistake in
Mhm.
any capacity, why do you feel now like it's okay to admit a mistake and keep going versus before maybe when you were super afraid to do it?
That's a great question. I think that's how I've kind of learned a lot of personal life lessons. Like, I can't wallow in the mistake. I have to just look forward and just keep going because that's the only way that I know how to continue to keep going on. Once I make a mistake, I definitely learn from that. One of the first things I think I did as a practice manager that I faux pas on was I did not pay one of our vendor bills on time, and there was like just a 2% penalty for paying late. And I was like, I felt so terrible that I forgot. But I mean, was it detrimental? No, it was a couple $100. I mean, to me, that was a ton of money, but I just felt so personally responsible for that. So, what did it do? It propelled me to adopt a task management mindset and a new platform that made tasks more visible, more actionable, and more visible in different formats that helped me to forget not only that, but a lot of other things. So that was like a benefit from that mistake. I try to look at the good that came from that error and just continue to move forward. Because if I sit there and say, oh my gosh, I paid that bill incorrectly or not on time, and I just wallow in it, what's that going to do? It's not going to help me get better or correct my process. It's just bitching and complaining at that point. Like, I made the mistake. I'm going to take an actionable step to correct it and move forward. And that's it. If I don't, then that's on me. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've had those kind of opportunity improvements, I'll call them, throughout your experience as well, right?
Yeah, I think you just like after you start openly challenging yourself when you do something that you feel isn't to your standard or you could have done better, or you have that moment of shame where you're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I made that mistake. I'm such an idiot," or whatever, internal talk you have. But realizing, like, I'm not gonna unpack my bags and live here. I have to, like, keep it moving if I wanna keep excelling or I wanna keep getting better. And really, like, where I'm at in my career now, I just realized, like, if I can make mistakes faster and
Mhm.
more of them, I actually get to the successful part quicker. So I
Exactly.
realized that, like, if I try to do it perfectly, I go so slow that almost no progress is made, and you, like, come up for air and you're like, "Oh my god, everyone else is moving faster." So what I realized was, like, you want to make mistakes a lot and fast so that you can just learn, so you can keep going at a certain pace. So for me now, I don't have a lot of ego in, admitting, right? Like, I'm totally okay to say, like, "Oh yeah, I fucked that up," right?
Mhm.
There was something that you mentioned that I find a lot of clients, that once they eventually start working with me and start taking those risks and taking those next steps and fully, like, raising their hand and admitting, I'm not where I want to be. You mentioned about the mentorship that you sought out, and everyone's version of mentorship looks different. But what I do find is a lot of people get stuck in, I don't want to admit where I'm at because if I say it out loud, people will think I'm a failure, or I have to admit I'm not as good as I thought I was, or whatever, like, ego thing that's holding you or keeping you stuck. So for you, Brandon, when you realize, like, okay, I want to grow or I want to learn something, and I'm going to have to, like, reach to something or someone outside of me, whether that's a coach, a mentor, a boss, a course, whatever it is, like, how do you muster up the courage to say, I don't know what I don't know and I want to know better or more? And how do you move through getting to that next step of seeking out the help that you need to keep you growing and going toward your goal?
The key for me has been to get comfortable being uncomfortable. In the beginning, it was kind of hard because you do want to kind of gatekeep that insecurity. To your point, when you say it out loud, then it's true. Then you have to do something about it. And that's the hard part. When it's inside, nobody knows. It's only hurting you, right? But I'm sure that the repercussions of some actions when you don't take action, affect a lot more than just yourself. But getting comfortable being uncomfortable for me was a lot of networking. Like, I'm a really introverted extrovert. Like, everybody thinks that I'm, Susie Sunshine, Miss Bubbly shit, talking to everybody, but I do have a limit. Like, I'm an Aries. I can turn it on, and when I'm on, I'm on. But when I'm off, I am off. And even a lot of the conferences that we go to, can be like super overwhelming. Everyone thinks it's fun. Again, things that are on Instagram. Oh, you're at a nice hotel. You're taking pictures. Y'all look nice. Y'all have Louis Vuittons and all that. And it's very much not the case. It's 18 to 20-hour days. You're still working in between. You need to make those contacts and talking to people that you necessarily wouldn't run into just because you don't have or need a partner right now in the aesthetic space or a certain vendor, like someone else may need it. So it was a lot of just talking, letting people know who I am and what I do to make that connection and leveraging social media, not just like following each other on Instagram. I really like LinkedIn. I think that shows my age because nobody under the age of like 35, I think, knows what LinkedIn is or think that it's something that you get at Home Depot. But, just making like actionable. Are you raising your hand because you have a question?
Yeah, I
What,
wanna ask
what's
you
on?
another question because I want you to dig in deeper.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you not have Home Depot in Canada? No.
We do. But what I wanted to ask you is like specifically because I struggle with this and I know again like people see you on Instagram or whatever they see you on podcasts and they're like,
Mhm,
"Oh, but how would you struggle?" It's like, "Girl, I struggle." I have to say hate with like a capital H. I hate introducing myself.
mhm,
Honestly, I feel like I'm having a mini stroke.
mhm.
Every single time someone's like, "Oh, and in front of all of these people, please tell us your story in 10 seconds and
Uh-huh.
tell us why." Essentially, what I hear in my head is like, "Why do you deserve to stand on this stage?" And I'm like having a mini panic attack in my soul
Mhm,
because in my head, I'm still the imposter. So,
mhm,
my question for you is like, because I hate it so much when you mentioned like you're going to reach you'll walk up to vendors or you'll walk up to maybe someone you've been following on Instagram or something, like do you get that or do you ever have that feeling of I would rather stay comfortable, or like how do you fight that? I'm going to be 100% honest. When I go to conferences like the last one we were at together,
mhm,
I watched you introduce yourself, walk around, and act like you just fucking belonged and you own the place. And I'm just like, I want to be like you when I grow up. I know a lot of people don't believe me, but like I'm so shy. I hate putting myself out there, even though I do.
mhm.
In that setting, I was like, "Oh my god, I need to learn this skill." So for you, like how do you go from like scanning a room to going like I want to talk to that person, that person, that person and then actually going and doing it? For me, I can hear my heart in my ears. For
Mhm.
you, how do you get through that?
I could tell because when we were at Aesthetic Next, you were a little shy, but I think you caught on that I'm just like throwing you in. So here's the secret, everyone. I'm gonna lean in real close. This is the secret. You just keep doing it until it feels good. Like literally that's it. You get comfortable being uncomfortable. So what you hate, you just keep doing until you don't hate it anymore. And it's as simple as that. I just kept doing it. And now I just find reasons to make conversation. Perfect example. Like I've never talked to Dr. Christian Subio a day in my life. We were at Aesthetic Next. We were getting lunch and we were in line and I saw him and I've never seen him before, but in real life, he's super tall. He's like 6'3, 6'4, 6'6. I don't know. He's taller than me and I'm 6 foot. I don't even know what I said to him, but it was so stupid. I was like, I think I just said, "Hey, my name's Brandon, and I've seen you on Instagram, but we've never met in real life. It's nice to meet you." And we ended the conversation talking about our veneers. How did we go from like plating salad to like talking about dentistry? And through that goofy conversation, it ended up that he needed somebody to speak at his conference coming up, and I had a connection. So that's as goofy as it can be. Like just complimenting, like if you're nervous, I think the best advice would be to just compliment someone or just throw it out there and be honest and say, you know what, I'm so nervous, but I really wanted to meet you. Like I've seen something that you've done, or I've seen you on Instagram, or you do great lips, whatever the heck it is, just throw it out there because what's the worst that could happen? They could say no, they could completely ignore you. Okay, so what? No skin off my back. Like it's
Yeah.
fine. So I don't know if that makes a lick of sense, but it's literally as simple as
It
that is to
does.
just keep doing it.
It makes a lot of sense because in a lot of the stuff that, I teach people and like even getting on Instagram, I had a call with a client yesterday and we were discussing her October results and whatever. And she was saying how much she grew. And we were looking at the numbers. I'm like, oh my gosh, you did like four or $5,000 more than you've ever done.
Mhm.
And the difference was, well, I asked her, what is the difference? She said, you know what, Erin, over the last month, I've really challenged myself to stay consistent in front of the camera
Mhm.
and just post and stop deleting and trying to be perfect and all the things
Yep.
that, I coach her through. And that was the difference of a big spike in sales and more followers and all this stuff. And I know this, Brandon, like
Mhm.
I teach this stuff where I teach my clients, the more you practice, it's just that like when you're nervous or you are uncomfortable, it's because it's not normal for you. And
Mhm.
I'm very aware of that. And like, even as you were saying back, you talking to Dr. Subio, like I watched you talk to him and my arm, like you recounting that, my armpits are sweating. I remember feeling like I'm standing back and I'm watching you go for it. Like, this is real talk. I'm watching you go for it, and I'm feeling nervous for you because I'm nervous, like, approaching someone that I look up to,
Mhm.
but also sitting there simultaneously envious that you just go for it. So I love that about you, that you just go for it. And, we were kind of just discussing mentorship and how do you seek out that kind of help that you need and whatnot. And I love that advice from you is like, you just have to practice because that's definitely what I teach as well. People are like, you're so comfortable in front of the camera. And I'm even comfortable, I'm great talking here right now.
Mhm.
I don't feel, nervous or anything, but it's also because I'm very practiced at it. I realize I just do this every single day,
Right.
whereas I know for some people that's really nerve-wracking. So I think to kind of wrap up what we've been talking about today, which is, we want to be here and have this platform and our conversations to bring people value in what they're doing and help give you those right next steps or some good direction. But most importantly, obviously, more than anything else, really help you guys see that the journey doesn't have to be lonely, right? And we're all more of the same than we are different. We all struggle at certain points and we all excel at certain points. And so we want to use this platform to help you guys do that.
Mhm.
And if there's anything you want to say, Brandon, to wrap up,
Yeah, do you have like a phrase or something that a piece of advice that somebody gave you along the way, if it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or last week, that has changed your perspective in general about just how you approach life or just like any kind of like little bit of wisdom just to kind of wrap up this episode? Because I have one,
so
but I want to see what you got.
yeah. Okay. So this is really simple. And I go back to it in my mind over and over and over again. I think I was about 22 when I met my first real mentor.
Mhm.
And I remember him saying he was a chain smoker, just like smoking
Mhm.
cigarette after cigarette after cigarette. And we had this like long discussion about, my past and where I'd come from and my confidence and where I think I could go. And he looked at me and he said, why not you?
Mm.
Like,
Mhm.
it really resonated with me, and honestly, I'm 40 now, this still plays over and over in my mind.
Yeah.
Why not you? Because what I realize again over time and when you're in your 20s, like, you think you think you're amazing, you think you're all that in a bag of
Mhm.
chips, but you at the same time, you don't think you're shit.
Yep.
And I go back to that so much with clients now, with friends, and for myself, because what you realize is no one is special and everyone is special. So
Mhm.
the why not you? Yeah, why not me? Why
I
not
love
me?
that. I
What
love
about you?
I know I just dropped a couple pearls of wisdom that I live by, but one other thing that I love is a saying that my friend Joanna told me, who's not in aesthetics at all, but this was just years ago when I was still in corporate America. And she was like, reach for the stars, even if you land on a cloud. So that like little bit just always like, you know what? Just go for it. Even if you don't get that desired result, you still put yourself out there and you may not have gotten to the stars, but you're a little bit more forward because you took that action. So I just always tell people that whenever, they may have a certain expectation for something about an outcome with whatever it is, a business decision or, a process or whatever, just reach for the stars, even if you land on a cloud. And it
I
sounds nice
love
too,
that.
right?
No, I love that. That's so fantastic. So that's all for today's episode of the Injector Business Blueprint. And we're so excited that you guys joined us on this journey today. We hope that you guys got some value from our conversation today. Obviously, there's a lot more to come. And we hope to inspire you and remind you that you're not alone. So, a huge thank you, Brandon, for being so open and sharing all of your gems of wisdom. And guys, if you're enjoying these episodes and you find value in them, we would love it if you could subscribe to this podcast and leave us a review. It's a small way to support the show and let us know if we've helped you, but more importantly, help other injectors and other med spas who need this sense of community. And remember, the road to being a med spa owner and aesthetic practice owner and the road to success doesn't have to be walked alone. So we're here with you every step of the way. And until next time, stay resilient.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Injector's Business Blueprint. We know your time is valuable and we appreciate you investing some of it with us. Comment, like, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to continue the journey with us to push through those fears, doubts, and roadblocks to make the journey a little less lonely. So until next time, don't forget, you're blessed to be stressed.